One of the most overlooked guns in all of Valorant is actually the Phantom, an incredibly strong and reliable weapon that is often put to the side compared to its slightly more flashy brother. That being said, there's never been an easier way to climb than by using the Phantom in the right situations, and abusing these 8 tips on the weapon, especially number 6, is gonna blow your mind about how you're supposed to be using the Phantom and why you should be picking it over the Vandal. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is the spray control on the weapon. The Phantom is the fastest shooting rifle, but this means that you are going to have to start pulling down immediately when you fire it, unlike other weapons like the Vandal that have a slower cadence, so you don't have to control that recoil nearly as much. Oftentimes, it's actually better to drop your crosshair placement slightly lower than you would with the Vandal, still on the head, of course, but almost to the lower chin level, simply because once that spray starts and that fast fire rate kicks in, the first 2 to 3 bullets will stay in the head hitbox a little bit more consistently. Not to mention, flat out, this gun is just simply better at spraying overall, so you're going to be incorporating sprays much more in your playstyle as opposed to the Vandal, which is a rifle that you're going to be tapping and bursting a lot more than you are here. That being said, your raw aim is something that is going to directly impact how good and consistent you are at finding value with any of these rifles, and for that, SkillCapped has a really in-depth aim guide teaching you step by step exactly the things that you need to do in order to go from trash aim to god tier aim as quickly as possible. So what are you waiting for? Check it out right now in the links down below. Now, looking at the stats on this weapon, there are several interesting points that we need to go over because it changes how you're supposed to be using the weapon and getting value on each and every engagement. First off, let's talk about bursting. And with the Phantom, you can often get away with 4 or 5 bullet bursts as opposed to other weapons like the Vandal, where you're going to want to keep it under 3 or typically tap most of the time. One of the best training drills you can do in the practice range is learning how to do really tight 4-round bursts by moving to the right, getting a really tight controlled burst, moving to the left, stopping and doing the same thing over and over again, getting fast at going through this repetition and controlling this burst consistently, because even if you don't hit a headshot from most ranges, consistently hitting a 4-round burst in the body is going to at least damage someone severely, and a 5-round burst is almost always going to kill them. In addition to that, keep in mind that if you haven't used the Phantom a lot, it actually has a different reset timer than many of the other guns you use in the game, so keep in mind that as you practice it, because it's something that you can get used to, and it actually has a faster reset timer than a lot of the other weapons that you can choose from, so you're going to be able to get a burst off, wait the perfect amount of seconds to get that first shot accuracy back, and then actually shoot again a new burst that you still can keep under control. Now, the next thing that's super important for you to abuse on the Phantom is spamming through smokes. Because the Phantom has these hidden bullet tracers where people can't identify where the spam is coming from, you're punished a lot less from spamming through smokes than other weapons, where if they can identify where the spam is coming from, they can often do some free damage to you or even kill you outright. And this is something that you have to be abusing on the Phantom if you really want to get more value than the Vandal. And oftentimes, figuring out when and where to spam comes down through experience and instinct that you develop over time. How many times have you started shooting a smoke a little bit, stopped because you felt like you were wasting your time, only to get swung out and die even though you did do some damage to the person that was in the smoke? Many times when you feel like there's a chance that someone's in a smoke, or you have an inkling feeling that that's true, commit to your gut, commit to your instinct, and then afterwards evaluate if it was good or bad. The last thing that you want is to half commit to a spam. Oh, maybe they're in here, I'm just gonna shoot a couple of bullets. Oh, they're probably not, and then die. Or perhaps even if there's no one there, you actually get value in the fact full confirming it. Another great thing to keep note about when you're spamming is that you have a full 30 bullet magazine. You don't have to just simply shoot a little bit and then reload right away. Way too many people will spray in like a tight burst and then get swung by someone and they're already reloading, and they really only use like 5 bullets, but then you die to somebody that swung out of the smoke. But oftentimes you can clear a place in the smoke and then be ready if someone swings out of the smoke as well, so you can do the best of both worlds, and you have plenty of ammo to like fully utilize a spray control transfer or even a reset sidestep and then potentially killing the person swinging out. Now, this really leads me to the ammo section of this weapon, because spraying a lot is super powerful on this gun, and you need to be really light on that trigger with this weapon. Oftentimes with other weapons like the Sheriff or the Vandal, you are very careful with when you're allowing bullets to to leave your gun, really trying to take your time in every engagement, worrying more about hitting your shots perfectly than actually getting to that shot quickly, right? But the Phantom's a little bit different. Oftentimes, you want to spam extra, you want to wallbang boxes, you want to allow bullets to come out of your gun very quickly, and unless you're down to 10 bullets, 8 bullets or less, you can be pretty liberal with the way that you're shooting your gun, because just getting tags, getting damage out, and oftentimes getting some prediction shots where you're spamming certain corridors, you're allowing yourself to use your bullets as a resource. So like you're jiggling around in a jiggle fight, you're jiggling to the left, jiggling to the right, doing a little 3-bullet spray on the right side, 3-bullet spray on the left side. Sometimes they walk into it, sometimes they peek into you and you get some free damage. Sometimes no one's there, but you have these bullets to play with, and you're not as punished for actually committing to any amount of spraying and whiffing. That's not going to happen to you nearly as much. You don't have to reload as much. You have a faster reset time, and you can also spray and spray transfer much easier than these other guns. So being floaty with your aim and floaty with how you're taking these engagements is going to allow you to get more value on the Phantom using the power that the Phantom has to offer specifically. Remember, at the end of the day, it still has medium bullet penetration as well, so you're going to be able to wall bang a ton of different boxes, and this is something that you should be utilizing a lot because you can walk into sight for a specific engagement, burst one corner for 5 bullets, burst another 2 corners for 5 bullets each, and then still have 15 freaking bullets to take any engagement that you come across, which is enough to kill multiple people. And this is something super important for you to take note of, because oftentimes you're just not spraying enough when you're using this gun. You're dying with freaking like 15, 20 bullets left in your gun, or you're reloading all the time when you just use a tiny bit of ammo and costing yourself information, costing yourself potential duels in a gunfight that you're losing for free, and it's a really, really bad habit to get into. The next up, we do gotta talk about movement, and with the Phantom, you have the most freedom of movement out of any rifle, period. Once you really learn that burst timing, you can incorporate AD strafing into your wall shooting practice and make sure that those bullets get into a tight group. It's actually more important a lot of times that you can go from movement into a tight spray, because that's gonna really make you consistent in a lot of gun duels where you're not gonna lose a lot of these gunfights in the same way that maybe you would lose them with the Vandal, where you miss that first shot and then you just dying to someone spraying you down. You're gonna be someone that doesn't need that first shot headshot every single time, and you're still gonna be incredibly consistent with your kills and in your gunfights, and consistency is gonna win you more games than anything else, rather than feeling really hot or maybe feeling really not at the time. Another thing that's really important for you to think about is the ranged fights, and everything at range with the Phantom, you're just gonna want to do it similar but on a slightly smaller scale. Instead of 3 to 5 bullet bursts, typically you're gonna go down to 2 to 3 because your bullet inaccuracy is more predominant. This also allows you to straight faster sooner, which is extremely important in a long range fight because you're mainly trying to become harder to hit, not hit your target nearly as fast, because you're kind of disadvantaged in a lot of these range duels. And really, on the Phantom, you don't want to take as long duels as you would on another weapon like the Vandal. Most of the time, you want to route and set up more close range engagements where you can utilize the power of the Phantom over the power of the long distance one taps of the Vandal, like challenging like an operator from long, or even fighting any very long sight line. You're just going to be at a disadvantage compared to other weapons, but especially when you get within that 15 meters, you're just straight up better than the Vandal in every way. So you got to keep that in mind, and if you can make all your engagements those 15 meters or less, you are just the better rifle straight up, and you can set this up with utility, your engagement, or just keep in mind that you don't always have to take these long duels, and you shouldn't be playing for them nearly as often. Another thing that's really important is your ADSing, and this is something that you shouldn't be afraid to do. Aiming down the sights when holding a long angle or being forced to take a long duel is actually legitimately good on the Phantom. It does lower your fire rate, but it decreases that first shot spread, and you're not trying to do long bursts anyway. So if you are going to take a ranged fight, aiming down the sights is definitely something that you should try to do. On top of that, make sure that you're never spraying with aim down the sights. 2 to 4 bullet bursts maximum, but really tapping is probably the best thing you're trying to do. You're kind of giving yourself the slight versatility of a long distance tap weapon like the Guardian or the Vandal, but only in a pinch when you have to take that duel. Now, as far as maps are concerned, Phantom is really good on every single map, but certain maps are actually a bit better for the Phantom. Maps like Sunset and Split are absolutely amazing for the Phantom just because of a lot of the close angles and sight lines. It's very strong on maps like Ascent, Fracture, Bind, Lotus, and Haven, and on maps like Pearl, Vandal can feel a bit stronger because of B Long, and then Breeze and Icebox Vandal is probably better most of the time. It really comes down to how long and how far away the engagements are, but on the majority of the maps, the Phantom is just incredibly powerful and severely underplayed compared to how strong it is. Some pros also like to use the Vandal on attack and then the Phantom on defense, because on defense it's a lot easier to choose your angles, but on attack you're forced into a lot of duels that you can't expect. So there are different strengths for these weapons, and feel free to mix and match both these rifles, and don't feel like you have to pick only one. It's actually better for you to be good at both, because you never know when you're going to pick up one of the other weapons and just have to use it, carry it in with you to the next round, or even into the clutch that you're about to pop off in a couple seconds. Now lastly, let's talk about agents. Some agents actually utilize the Phantom a bit better. Strongest by far on controlist and scan initiators, because they're going to spam a lot, finding information and spamming off of it. And then also controllers that get to play around their own smokes and get to do all of the non-tracer spamming things through smokes. It's super strong with a controller in particular. So characters like Omen, Brim, Viper are going to have a much better time with the Phantom the majority of the time compared to the Vandal. Now on top of that, a lot of duelists that like to close in the gap and force close range duels like Raze and even characters like Neon are going to feel better with a gun that has more flexibility with running and gunning and spray control. So if you're satcheling in or sliding in, the Phantom can feel way better than the Vandal. Now of course this is purely personal preference, and you can also play the Phantom on pretty much any character, but there are some maps and some characters that it does feel more optimal on. But overall, I hope I gave you some really legitimate reasons to start grinding the Phantom and ways in which you can become better at the Phantom as quickly as possible. If your raw aim skill is what's suffering, definitely check out our aim guide course or our spider method guide that you can find on the SkillCapped to quickly help you learn everything you need in order to pop off and click heads. Thank you so much for coming by, and we'll see you next time.